Oops, there, now we're good.
Okay.
How's everybody doing? Good? Good to see you all. Um, so we're just gonna dive right in and we'll start from the very beginning and then go all the way through the financials. And then we'll take any questions or feedback that you guys have towards the end. And then, of course, the ever amazing joke, because I gotta tell a joke, because that's all I do. So, okay, here we go. Okay. Where's my Okay, can everybody see this?
Let me share your screen.
Where is that?
Where did Zoom go?
Right here.
Okay. Yep. Oh my God, this is so I feel like I need my sunglasses.
Just 1 second, guys. We're just having a little bit of problem.
Right there.
Ah, the green one.
The green one.
The green one.
Now we'll see it. Or it's starting.
Okay,
Okay, there it is.
perfect. Okay, so this is our financial statement in the Excel version. Those that like the actual PDF, that's what the PDF is going to look like. So same, just a little bit different. I'm like struggling with this color up there. Okay, there we go. So one thing I'm gonna note right away, that we've made a little bit of change. You'll see some title changes a little bit. The one that you're gonna notice the most is where it says, where it used to say salaries, it is now called other contracted services. And we'll get to that when we're through the process, but I just wanted to point that out right away, in case some of you notice that it's a little bit different. So the first tab you have is your income tab, and that's where you're going to put all of the funds that you get from NDFU. Some individuals will use this as their checkbook register, so you'll put all of your information, whether it's NDFU related or not. That's how I would recommend doing it, just because everything's kind of in one spot. Then we have your expenses. And a new tab this year that we put on there for your help is those that want to keep your checkbook register inside this form as well. You can do that now as well. Checking, savings, this is all, this whole tab you can edit. So if you have other savings accounts that you want to note, if you want to put your CDs in there, you can do all of that. And if you need a little help with Excel, please reach out. I definitely can help you with that. So those that get the paper and use their paper, I'm going to show you, this is what the, why does
Okay,
this
so
not?
we still see the test counting thing, so you might have to stop share and then share some.
Okay, let me share maybe.
There you go. Perfect.
I don't know why this is, get this to shrink.
I know, it's a
Okay.
pain, it will not, now we see
Okay.
it.
Okay,
It's a little small though.
it is small.
Okay.
And I can't really make it much bigger because I can't get in the where the little X is at. But so this is the expenses tab, and then you'll have a sheet that will have income as well. I just don't have a picture of that at the moment. Can you see me?
I can
See that? I
see
can.
that.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Mhm.
It's kind of hard to see on your screen, but
Mine also, like I'm watching the chat, so
oh, okay.
mine might be smaller than most.
Okay, so we're just gonna go right through the statements. Thank you for bearing with me while I
I can see where we're at.
Okay,
Okay.
can you guys see okay, perfect, perfect.
You can't see the credits. There you go.
I'm gonna shrink that. Well, now you see better.
Yes, that's
Okay.
perfect.
Okay, so when you go through your statement, so that first statement we're gonna look at is the October. You will see in this statement, there are dues that are paid. You have a debit and a credit of dues. So in your dues, and you'll have this on the treasurer's reference guide too. It will have this explanation that you will get at the end of or in August. If you have a debit, you'll put a negative. If it's a credit, you don't need to put a positive, you just leave it as is. So in this case, we'll put, and again, these are old dates, but, and you don't have to put really a whole lot of information when the ones that come from the county statements necessarily, especially when it comes to dues. And then it falls underneath the membership county dues. So column C is a totaling column is what they all will total down. But this column C is for the actual total statement amount. And then the D through the rest is for where it's going to actually fall on the report tab itself. See where there's a negative 3550 here. That's where it will pluck into the right spot. Use 143.50. Okay, so that's all we have for dues, and you can see then that the net amount is $108. So instead of it actually being the credits or the debits being actually an expense, we just, in the end, we need to report the net amount of dues that you guys get for the year. So that's why we do it this way. Same with when we get to the advertising expense and add cost share credit. That will be a similar situation there, which we'll review when we get to that point. So you'll see the other two expenses here. We have annual meeting postcards and a youth bus trip. So we'll go to your expense tab. We're going to put your date on here. You can put, if you would like, NDFU statement, if that helps to differentiate when you're keeping track of your other expenses. You don't have to do that. Again, this is totally, you make this how you want it to look. And we just abbreviate as obviously as much as we can. So that cost was $150.10. So again, D is your main, it's just the total. E through the rest is where it will fall in the expenses on your report tab. So when it comes to postcards and printing, those you're going to want to put in the category that they were for. So in this case, this is for annual meeting postcards. You're going to put that in your meetings, conventions, and conferences. If it was a youth postcard, you would put it in youth activities. I'm trying to think of if there'd be another.
Shop talks, maybe if they sent out cards for shop talks.
Yep, shop talks. I would say that would be under the conventions, conferences, and meetings too. So you want to really put that in the place that it's for that activity. So you can go back to your board and you can say, our youth activities for the year covered or was this amount of money, and it covers all of the expenses for that. So if it's meals, drinks, giveaway items, anything like that, you're going to want to put it in your category that it was designed for. So here we have a youth bus trip. And that was $300. And we're going to put that in youth activities. So now if we go back to the report tab and we scooch over to where your expenses are, you can see once you put them in those categories, they'll come over into your report tab and they'll total for you. So in talking about bus trips, I know we're going through a statement at a time and then we'll just kind of answer questions along the way when you guys have some. But one thing I wanted to note, this plane and bus trip assistance. So what you would put in there, again, it's going to be on your income tab and it has its own category as well. So you would put it in there. But that would be, an example would be if you collect $5 from your participants that are going on a bus, and that's where you would put that income. If you were to receive a statement credit from the state office for a particular bus trip, that it was on your statement, that's where you want to put it. So most people, we really don't have much of that, but I know that's one question we've had in the past just because it's so infrequent. Okie dokie. We're going to scoot right over to November. So in November, our test company received education funds. And we're not going to do spell check on my spelling as we're going through really quick.
Yeah.
So you'll want to record all of your education funds, whether it comes as a credit to you on the state office statement or whether it comes to you directly from your co-op. Because I know some co-ops, they bypass the state office and they pay the counties directly. So either way, you're going to want to record your education. We need you to record your education funds. So we've got some more dues. And again, we have $14 that we're taking away. And then you're going to get a credit of $59.50. And that's all for that statement. So really, if you keep up with this on a quarterly basis, it shouldn't take too much for you to do. It's just, I know we all get busy and some things get put to the wayside. So I totally understand that. One thing I guess I'll note here too at this time. So this balance brought forward that you have on your statement, you wouldn't record that anywhere inside of here because as you record each transaction, it's going to be keeping track of that balance brought forward. So whether it's an expense to you or income that and the state office owes you, that's where you would put that. Or you wouldn't have to, you don't put that anywhere.
Hey, Brandy.
Yes.
So I know I've asked you this before. So instead of putting the negative 3550, why can't we put it in just the expense column? Wouldn't it be like the same thing?
Well, because it's not an bless you. It is
Right.
not an expense to you.
Right.
So because we just need, in the end, because we use all of these financial statements, I compile them all together to do our 990 tax return. So by using these columns and recording that net amount, it helps to total for our tax return, if
Sure.
that makes sense.
Yep.
But now in this case, John, you wouldn't have to do like the negative 3550 and the positive 143.50. You don't have to do that.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yep.
You wouldn't have to do that. You could just do the net amount if you wanted to of $108. if
Okay,
that makes
so
sense.
I'll keep putting the negative in though. I know last year I struggled with that for some reason, but I got it now.
Okay.
I'll
And
just
and it
I'll just
does
keep doing
seem
it this
back.
way.
It seems a little odd. I get it. Um, but it's really not a true expense to you in the sense that um for like your activities, things like that.
Right. Okay. Nope, I got it. Thank
Is
you.
that okay? Yep, you're welcome. Good question. Okay. So, and a lot of times the reason why if we're doing why you do them individually is like John said, if you have an issue and you're struggling to balance, sometimes that makes it stands out a little bit easier. But in the end, really, it is what you're comfortable with completely. Expenses. So we have three insurances that you are billed for. It's the county share of these policies. And these will show up on your March statement is where they're going to show up this year. Sorry, just got to tab my way through since I can't see it all. So I just put that in where the insurance is at.
Is every county billed the same insurance?
So they're all billed the same policies. It depends upon which one of the insurance that it is. So this where it says secretary bond, that's going to have a different name. It's actually employee theft is what it is. It is secretary bond is an old way that they used to call it. It used to be a bond insurance. It's not bond. Um, so what that is based on is that is a percentage of, so we take your membership total for the year at the end of the year, and then how much you guys have in your account at the end of the year. And it's a formula based on that. Because obviously the risk is greater for those who have more money.
Right.
So all of those take into consideration, but it's either, yes, it's either based on your membership count and or how much money you guys have in your account. So it is not the same across the board for everybody. It is really just based on what you guys have for for a risk.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
And if you guys have any other insurance questions, um, we've had Clark, excuse me, talk in the past. Um, I can share his information with you guys as well. So if you had any question on like what was covered or your limits, things like that, he's going to be the best resource for that. So I will share that information too. Because at the end of this, once we're all done, I'll send updated Excel sheets and my contact information along with Clark's. So we can get that to you guys too.
I think the moral of the story is you guys should spend your money.
Yes, Jessica says spend your money.
We
Don't
like
keep
that money in Stark County.
it.
I'm so surprised.
Okay, so now we have another youth postcard mailing. So we'll pop over to the expense tab. Again, we're going to put that in the youth department. Oops, I don't have any more expenses on that. So we have just one more dues. Oh my gosh, I swear I can't type. So in this case, this county received a grant award from the state office of $3,000. That falls in other income because there really isn't a tab for that. So where we have local assistance, the only thing that's ever put in local assistance is your dollar per member that you receive as of the check is issued for 9/30, but you won't receive it until that first week in October or 2 weeks, depending upon how the postage falls. We try to get it to you guys just as soon as we can at the end of the year. There's some balancing and stuff that sometimes can cause an issue. Knock on wood, this last year, it was awesome. We had it done within the first week, and since I've been here, that has not happened. So that was really awesome. Oops. News. It's like watching paint dry. It is. Watching somebody type information in is really boring. It's not super exciting.
Well, that's why, like, if you kept this all in one place and you wanted to do it all on one day, or if you just did it, once a quarter, it wouldn't be,
Yes.
such a huge issue.
Okay, so then this comes to it looks like we've got an ad cost share credit here of $95. So this is the same instance with the dues. Because in the end, you only need to record the cost that is directly to you as a county. So in here, you would do add cost share. Fortunately, I don't have the expense in here, but let's say this was it was advertising for your youth event for the youth bus trip. So you would put that in youth activities because it's directly related to that youth activity. Now, generally, you're going to have an expense in here as well. So instead of it being an advertising expense, even though it is advertising, but because again, it's directly related to either a youth event, a meeting, a conference, one of your conventions, it's not going to go in advertising. It's going to go in one of those two categories of expenses. Sorry.
That's all right.
Okay. I want that to go away.
What are you trying to get?
I'm trying to get so I can see it. I can't see my. Ah, just got to be smarter than the computer.
On it.
Okay. So one thing we talked about was your dollar per member that you get at the end. It would be for your fiscal year that's ending, but you're not going to get it until October, which is technically the new year. But because it's based on your membership as of the end of 9/30, that's why you record it there. So here we're going to say we got local assistance, and that comes in the form of a check. It is not a statement credit. And that is what goes in here, is that local assistance amount. Another thing that you're going to get, that would be a check. I put September, which isn't, You'll get it usually in January, but that is any delegate assistance, delegate travel for state convention. And that would be under delegate assistance. I know some of our counties, some of you, I think even on this call, maybe that received the NFU,
Oh, yeah.
the NFU award. You'll receive that. It also comes in the form of a check. It does not show up on your statement. And that is another thing that falls in that other income. Okay, so another thing that we've talked about very infrequent in the past, but is something I need you guys all to be aware of, is any per diems that you pay to, let's say, your treasurer, your Epic coach, any of your board of directors. Now, this isn't mileage, it would be just an actual per diem. Those items, anything that's over $600, the counties need to be filing 1099s on them. And it does fall on the county level responsibility, not the state office. So generally, a Form 1099 needs to be issued when the payment receipt is not your organization's employee. It is not a corporation. A payment was made for services to your organization, and the total payments during one calendar year are at least $600. So it goes by calendar year, not our fiscal year. So, but of course, I mean, we don't provide tax advice, so I do have to do that little blurb there. So I would say if you have questions on that, I would reach out to a tax person, a CPA that you know, or maybe somebody in your county. Now, because so if it's a youth person that you're paying a per diem to for an Epic coach, those are qualified. Those are an expense that is related to your youth. It is not a salary. So that's why I know that was a little misleading with the terminology we had used for years, which was salaries. That's why we put for contracted individuals. So that would be if you're paying a CPA, and again, that not all CPAs are going to get that. They're not 1099, but again, they will tell you that. But if you had an attorney that you guys needed some assistance with, so you're not generally going to have anybody that falls in that category. So if it's a board member or board of director that you're paying a per diem to, that goes under your directors, officers and directors. Travel expense is where you're gonna find that.
So it's like a contract, if you would contract with someone.
If you would contract with
Yeah.
somebody that's not part of your organization.
Okay.
So there'll be some additional information when you have your treasurer's guide, reference guide that comes out with information in the end of August or we usually send those out in August. So yeah, that's something that I wanted to highlight, along with there will be a new place on our sheets that will give you the opportunity to put some additional information for any donations that you make. So donations that you make to either local charities or organizations or an individual, like if somebody's going through cancer or something like that, fire halls, any single donation of $5,000 or more, we need to be provided the name of the business or individual, their tax ID number, social security number, business address, and purpose of that donation. That's actually an IRS requirement. So that's why we need to have that information. So in the past, if people have, because I don't see the detail necessarily, if I see anything that's over $5,000, then I would just reach out to you and ask you, it could be, you maybe paid five people five or $1,000 and it wasn't one person, which is just fine. It's just if one individual or entity receives 5,000 or more. Those were my two main things that I wanted to highlight. Did I hear somebody maybe have a question coming up? I thought I heard something.
Nothing in the chat.
Okay. Um,
I guess I have a question.
mhm.
Um, for tax purposes, you said just contracted people, not necessarily board members that we're paying mileage to and stuff.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yep. And when it comes to like the 1099 amount, if you're
Yep.
reimbursing mileage, that meals, those expenses, they're not part of a 1099. It's only if you pay them, $75 for every meeting, and that happens to be over $600 in a year, that's when you would record it. So it's anybody who you pay a per diem to. So like when you're mentioning your officers, their per diem and mileage would be, that is that officer and director's expense.
Yep. Okay.
It does
Thanks.
say just travel, but yeah. Yes, and so your officers and directors travel expense, the mileage paid, that goes under officers and directors travel. Any per diem for those officers would go under conventions, conferences, and meetings because it's directly related to those. They're getting paid because they're at those meetings. Does that make sense, Andrew?
He's on mute.
Oh, I mean, officer and director mileage and per diem. That's just for our county meetings, correct? And then conference conventions and meetings, that's state. Is how I
It
always
depends,
understood.
Andrew, it depends on what you guys decide. Some counties, here, I'll video myself.
Here.
Some counties, no, you can leave yours.
Okay.
I'm sure they can hear me. Some counties decide to reimburse for convention, and then I would imagine that would be a convention expense.
That
Like
would-
Stutzman
yes.
County says, we'll pay you $100 of your hotel expense. So then whatever is paid out from that, but that's not something the state does. And the state pays the people who come to Board of Governors directly, and Brandy is tracking all of that, and she gives them a 1099 at the end of the year if it's
Yes.
more than $600. The state also pays the mileage for state convention, and I would imagine that's income.
That is, yes, that is income. That's the delegate travel assistant.
Delegate travel assistance. Okay, so the state is not paying you guys to have meetings nothing would come from the state there.
Correct, but under expenses, when it says convention, conference, and meetings, I guess I always put, like, if we reimbursed them for motel or whatever for the
Yep.
state convention, I always put that in there.
Yes,
Yes.
that would be fine.
Yes,
Then officers and directors mileage and per diem, it's just our county meetings
Yes.
and stuff. That's where I always put it. If that's correct.
Yep,
Mhm.
yep,
Okay, thanks.
you bet.
Goodbye.
For your audit committees once your financials are completed for the year, you'll have an audit committee. There,
Thinking, yes, hold on.
what is he got a question?
He said, isn't the trigger at 600, not as you stated? I heard Brandy say 600 or more, but to be clear,
Yes,
it is 600.
it is $600. Yep. So if you were to pay $599 and they wouldn't get, and that's their payments, total payments for the year, then they wouldn't hit that threshold for a 1099. The threshold is $600 and above. So if it's $600 and a penny, then it's 600, that would require a 1099.
What if it's exactly $600?
Exactly $600 still require a 1099.
Thank you.
Good question. Do you have another one?
Nope,
Okay, audit committee.
just ask.
The primary purpose of your audit committee is to provide an oversight of the financial reporting process for your year. And it's really just an internal control. They're looking to see, you would provide or have these documents ready for your audit committee if they wanted to, or if they look at them. And our expectation is that they do. A full year worth of your bank statements, your bills paid for the reporting fiscal year, any deposits made, the detail for your deposits, and the current year and prior year financial statements. So really, they should be looking for things that maybe stand out, any changes year over year, if all of a sudden your convention expenses are thousands of dollars more, that type of thing, looking at your bank balances and just overall just looking to make sure everything looks correct. And that's kind of the last step for people to make sure that your financial statements are balanced. If you are using your Excel sheet, you're balancing, it's going to show you right at the bottom, like here, because I don't have any bank information in here, it's not balanced. You can see that by that $5,487.54. So if you're using the Excel sheet, if you don't balance, it's going to show you there. It gets a little bit harder when you're using the paper copy because there's just a little bit more human error that can come into play. But again, if you're comfortable doing that, that's fine. But your audit committee should be just double checking the math too, to make sure that there weren't any errors or transpose numbers, those kind of things. Okay, now is joke time. Okay, and I'm going to see if anybody has the answer. What farm animal keeps the best time? What farm animal keeps the best time? A watchdog.
What?
Anybody get it?
Nobody typed
No,
anything.
nobody
They're a
typed.
shy bunch today.
Okay. So those were the main things that I wanted to cover and kind of go over with you guys. One thing I should.
There's Brandy. We
Oh.
can't see you up there.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
That's my fault. Is your check? Oh,
John Pierce says, ha ha.
ha, thanks, John. Thanks, Sean. I gotta love it if somebody enjoys my dad jokes. Your checkbook balance, that's one thing I should mention that I actually forgot. So when
The
you're
joke's hidden in the middle there.
yes, the checkbook balance, it is, if you look at your 930 bank statement, and I don't have a picture of one up here, but as of 930, the amount you're going to put in your checkbook balance is the amount that's listed on your statement. Now, the only difference would be is if you're already keeping, some people put their checkbook balance that they have in their check register here at the end. Because in there, if you have outstanding checks or outstanding deposits, those are all already recorded in there if you put your checkbook, the check register. Not everybody does that, and that's just fine. The thing you want to keep in mind is your deposits in transit would be anything that we're accounting for on your financial statement that has not yet hit your bank balance. So in this case, it's going to be the statement. Ours was March 31st statement that I had in here. Let's see if we can bring it up. Let's give it a second here while it thinks. And normally this would be your September balance, right? But in our example, we're gonna go down here. On your little turkey.
Or it'd be that check you usually send us in October, correct?
Yes. So if this was our 9/30 statement, so the state office owed our test company $3,049.64. So in there, I'm going to want to record that $3,049.64. And the reason for those that don't use Excel all the time, the reason I put a plus in front here is then it's going to add what numbers I put together. You can do a plus or an equal. And then our $1,200 local assistance, because I know I didn't have that at the end of the year. So I know it's still off, but that's because of our other balances here.
That's okay.
But, or I don't have our beginning balance. But then your checkbook should have this at the end of the year. It would have this balance of $9,768.87. If you're looking at your bank statement and you've accounted for all of your outstanding checks and deposits, which we should be doing here, that amount will be what your balance is. And then your beginning balance next year is going to be that dollar amount. Because we would have you would have, by that time, you would have deposited that $4,200. And then if you had a statement or savings account balance, CDs, that sort of thing, you would have that there. You would list that there as well. If that makes sense. Is there any additional questions or things that you guys have come across that you maybe like a little bit more information on? Let's start maybe.
So the less payable to North Dakota Farmers Union, what would that ever
So
be put in for?
that's a great question. So what that would be is at the end of September. So that first statement I know had so let's say this was your September balance or your September statement. This is saying you owe North Dakota Farmers Union $342.10. So if at the end of September, you're not getting a payment and you owe money, you would put that negative 390 in there or whatever that dollar amount was. And the reason why you're recording here, number one, is because you haven't made the payment. And we're recording all of the transactions from your statement, either between the income and the expense tabs. You're recording that on your income side and your expense side, but you're not taking into account on your bank balance, if that makes sense. Now, some counties, depending upon what your guys' cash flow is, everybody's different. But at the end of the quarter, the recommendation is if you have the funds available and you receive a statement that shows you owe NDFU money, it's best to pay that out quarterly. So at the end of every quarter, you go back to zero. Some counties don't always have that much cash flow, so they just leave it and the funds just kind of carry over until you eventually get a credit back. And that's fine to do that too. It really is in the end just up to the counties and really depends on your cash flow, what you guys have for money available. That makes sense. Is there any other questions, or are there things that you find, those that have been doing it a little bit, that you would maybe like to see changed? If you don't have anything right now, that's fine. I'll send out my contact information, Clark's, and then our updated worksheets. At any time, if you think something seems cumbersome, like when we were talking about the debit and the credit of the dues and things like that, sometimes we record things a certain way, kind of because we have to, but that's not always the case. So we want to make things as simple as it is for everybody across the board. So I am always open to suggestions and comments and things that I can do to make your guys' job easier.
I have a question.
Yeah.
On your audit, the audit report, that we send back to you,
Yes.
I'm referring to this per diem and mileage thing. Is there a way to have a special column split for that? Otherwise, I don't know. I always get confused there. Well, you have to go back and figure out how much. I write it in one check for mileage and per diem. Should that be written out separately then, or what?
Ellen, do you use what type of, do you normally do the paper or do you do the Excel? I can't remember. Or Carol, I'm sorry.
I've been doing the paper.
Okay. So we can definitely on our paper tabs, on our paper information, if that's helpful, we can add a column for that. Those that do the Excel sheet, it would be easy enough to, when you put your check in here, just repeat the same check number, same person's name, and then you can put like a per diem line and a mileage line if that's helpful. But we can definitely add a line for that too.
That would be helpful. That would be helpful to me either way. I mean,
Okay. Yes, because I have to figure a way to be able to add information in there. So when you guys do have like donations, a place that you can fill out at that time. That was a requirement that we were just kind of made aware of a couple years ago, which it maybe was just an IRS change with needing that additional information. So we've never provided space for you to fill that in before. So I have to make changes the way it is. I'm going to try to do them as easy as possible so I don't confuse people. But I also want to be able to make it easy. So when you guys are filling out that stuff, everything's right.
Right. Well, that was whenever I get to the end, then I had to go back and figure out how much was for each, for mileage and for per diem. So if there was a special column for it, it would be easier when you do it the first time.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I can take a look at that and get that
Okay, thank you.
added. Yes, you're welcome. Great feedback. Is there anything else anybody has? Which no questions are good questions. That means you guys got it all.
Yes, they're subject matter experts.
So, okay, I will send you guys all of that information. I will probably hold off on the Excel sheet just a little bit until I make our changes. So it'll be coming. For now, those of you that are already keeping track on your current sheet, just leave it as is. It's not going to have that big of a impact with format change. So I don't want to hold you guys up on doing anything. It just might be a few little tweaks that we can change, but yeah, I don't want it to hold you up doing what you're doing. So
Randy, for those of us that use this Excel sheet, would it be helpful if we did this like every quarter and sent it over to you just to review instead of it being
if
at the end of the year, like it
I
usually is?
can, absolutely, I can look at it if you would like. Yep. That would be, if that's helpful for you, I can definitely do that. That's no problem at all. And it is, yeah, it's a much smaller data sample of stuff we have to look at than necessarily an entire year.
Right. Okay.
Just one second. Okay. So if there is no other questions, then we will get this, we will finish our recording and sorry, Jessica had to step out, so. Is there anything else you guys had? Okay, thank you guys all for taking time to sit in on this today. I really appreciate it.
I had a question for Jessica, but she walked out. I've been trying to get a hold of her the last couple days.
Oh, shoot. If you want to just send her either an email or text message. Yeah, I'm not sure. She had a phone call that she had to take, so.
Yeah, I'll try her later. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
sounds good. Thank you guys so much. Take care.